Hails and welcome to Rauta's Underground Trio episode, this time thematically. There are two keywords that really define this. First of them, these are all from Finland and black metal, and the second is they're all kind of side projects. First, let's go through them in alphabetical order and then, according to my own opinion, worst to best. Let's start with Rietas, a black metal project from Lapland. It's a first album by this very band and indeed a side project. Then a new band from 2025, very new, is White Baroness, featuring current and previous members of Morgul. Melodic, fast black metal. Finally, last but not least, is White Rune, melodic symphonic black metal from Finland, also featuring members who play in bands like Sielun Vihollinen and Baratrum. So all black metal, but all vastly different. Now, let's go from worst to best. First, we'll get Baroness, who have their first album here, about 37 minutes, glossy digipack, very stripped down basics, no booklet, no lyrics, nothing but a photo and CD really, and basic recording information. What can we say about this is it's very demo-ish compared to what it is, a debut album. And I think there are two main reasons. First of all, it's a little bit of side project-ish of nature, meaning it really has some DNA with Morgul, but being different. Secondly, it seems like if this really was founded in 2025 and now they have already an album out, maybe they indeed skipped the demo phase and the result is here, and unfortunately sounding a little bit demo-ish. Not only in terms of production, which could be a lot punchier, but also in songwriting, it seems like this was hurried a little bit too much. Meaning, none of these songs are exactly good. It's very easy to listen to this, but after a while it feels like it's a little bit tedious. I'll try to explain. Now, the tempo is pretty much high throughout the whole action, throughout the whole course of action, that is. And then you have these melodic riffs. Now, so far it sounds kind of like Morgul. You know, heavy metal melodies, going with black metal vocals, black metal production, and of course black metal riffs too, but without forgetting the heavy metal thing. Now, that's alright, pretty cool so far. But the thing here is, these melodies are not that good as Morgul. The second thing is with the production, which is, you know, a little bit demo-ish, especially when the drums and vocals are more on the front of things. Front! And the guitars are kind of like wailing in the background. And even when there are no vocals, the guitars seem like they're a bit powerless. When in fact, with such melodic output as such as this, you would really need them to just nail down, dominate the whole pattern. Now, I wouldn't mind so much if the drums were more on the front, which they are, but when they're all the time, well, almost all the time, up-tempo, it really makes you, like, focus on the drums rather than on the guitars, whereas these guitar melodies and all that should be the driving force. Now, as a result, because this is all the time up-tempo, and then you have those crazy screamy vocals, which are pretty good, but not very varied, it's like this sounds like a poor man's Niflheim. It doesn't have the thrashy element as Niflheim does, and it's not as extreme as such. So it's more like if Niflheim and Morgul had a baby, which is kind of ugly at the same time. I think this band has promise, but this is still too much a demo-ish release to really justify. So maybe it's just my own opinion, but it feels like it needs to be maturing a little bit and take more focus on the songwriting. Maybe it's because all of these band members have so many other bands right there, and this seems to be a little bit like overshadowed by them in terms of focus time and effort. I don't know, but no cigar this time. Rietas is here with their debut album as well, but it's a little bit older band with some demos and whatever. Before this one, this is mainly done by Ari XIII, also known for his main band, Curse Upon a Prayer. And Rietas is his more crude side project, very much more like a raw end of black metal as opposed to Curse Upon a Prayer style, which means this production is a lot rougher, and so are some of the riffs. Then again, there are these almost like borderline folkier things, especially when there are these very Finnish traditional music impressions in the music, as well as a cover song, Täällä Pohjantähden alla, which is no metal song at all. That was already featured on their demo as well, so you might already have heard it. With these traditional Finnish takes, also including some samples from Finnish movies, I'm guessing, it feels like this is kind of like not folk homage, but traditional Finnish thing. So going more into the history rather than being modern times, and that in a way kind of works mysteriously hand in hand with this more rougher sounding black metal. So where Curse Upon a Prayer is more about this clean, more thought through kind of a modern sound, which is also more powerful, this is more like a step back to the kind of a 1990s vibe with a very strong focus on Finnish feeling. That even goes to the lyrics where pretty much Swedes and Russians are told to get the fuck out. Interesting release in my opinion, and quite good too, but still not exactly better than the previous demo work. I think this is a little bit work in progress kind of a thing, more like expanding the demo rather than being a successor to it. But I like where this band is going, and I think it has a lot of potential. And when you're thinking about, when I said Ari XIII is doing just pretty much all of the stuff, well, there are some session musicians and vocalists, and also a session drummer, or maybe he's full drummer, I don't know, but it was mentioned kind of later on, like everything by Ari except drums and then the session things. And the drummer is famous for other projects too, so it's not like he's some nobody. Anzilu, by his artist name, you will figure it out, or if you take a look at the band's Metal Archives site or other links, and you will understand it. Then, in my opinion, best of the pile comes from White Rune's second album, and this aesthetically continues the previous path. Eventide on Aurora is almost like coming from the same series as the previous White Rune demo recordings, as well as musical style, but also something has changed. Nowadays, the band is mostly two guys, Ruttokeli, famous of Paratrom and Sieluvihollinen, and his brother Soldau doing the drums here. But musically things have changed, and this album also has some session members, or at least one member taking care of the female vocal parts. Now, musically, White Rune's music is a little bit different from Sieluvihollinen, which is very melodic, straightforward Finnish black metal style, whereas White Rune is more symphonic, very much keyboard-driven music. And here's a twist. This doesn't sound like your typical Emperor copy or whatever, but actually, I think this is pretty much, Cradle Filth worship band. And in a good way. You have those very dramatic, cold-hearted female spoken parts like, the old Cradle Filth album had, like, Dusk and or Vampire or whatever. But also on top of that, you have these very 1990s sounding tragic or majestic, dramatic synthesizer parts, the kind of organ sounding thing, which really gives this a strong 1990s Cradle Filth kind of a thing. And I think it's beautiful how they have crafted this. But it's not like, one-on-one kind of copy, but it also has some other layers. And when I was explained that, not only Cradle Filth, but also earlier Dimmu Borgir stuff is, a major influence, I mean, it made all sense, because there are these parts. While I wasn't so much sensing these Dimmu Borgir parts, some friend of mine mentioned that, yeah, he can totally hear this Cradle of Filth and Dimmu Borgir thing going on here. And if the musician himself mentions, yeah, Dimmu Borgir, it is a thing here, obviously it must be a thing. While it's not so obvious to me, it's definitely more towards Dimmu Borgir than the Emperor style of symphonic orchestrated black metal. So, in a way, old-fashioned, kind of a retro-ish in that sense, but then again, there aren't too many bands who are able to sound, make the Cradle of Filth sound and style work, apart from Cradle of Filth themselves. So, in my opinion, this is a great homage to that kind of style, and seems like White Rune has really taken a step forward. I'm not saying this is necessarily better than the previous works, but more like on the same quality line, and just a little bit different what was previously. And I was also told by Ruttokeli himself that this is actually now closer to the original idea what White Rune was supposed to be. So, yeah, you lose some, you win some, I guess. But like I said, best of the pile in my opinion. So all are a little bit different, so might cater to different needs and all that stuff. And as such, your opinion might be very different from mine. But all these Finnish black metal bands are pretty interesting here. So give it a go. You will find more information on the links and of course the music. And Worth mentioning is that Rietas and White Rune are very fresh. The last day of October 25, and this White Baroness is even newer, 7th of November, the very day I'm actually filming this video. So they're still very fresh from the oven. If I got you interested in some of these releases, go and buy. They should be in stock because they are so fresh. Now, see you with the next episode. Meanwhile, you go and enjoy.